On Sunday, August the 2nd, 2015, 39-year-old Jason Corbett was peacefully sleeping at his home in Walberg, Davidson County, North Carolina. His household included his wife, Molly Martins, their two children, 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah, and Molly's parents, Tom and Sharon Martins, who originally hailed from Limerick, Ireland. As dawn broke over the quiet neighborhood, the sun's golden rays filtered through the curtains of Jason and Molly's bedroom. It was a seemingly ordinary Sunday, yet an undercurrent of tension lingered in the air, unbeknownst to the peaceful family. Jason had recently begun working long hours at a demanding job, leaving him exhausted most evenings. In contrast, Molly was juggling her responsibilities as a mother and caregiver while pursuing her own aspirations. In the kitchen, the smell of freshly brewed coffee began to weave its way through the house, coaxing Molly and her parents into the day. Tom Martins was perched at the table with the morning newspaper, casting glances at Sarah and Jack as they playfully argued over who would get the last pancake. Now, there's plenty for everyone," he chimed in, hoping to keep the peace while enjoying a quiet morning with his family. Meanwhile, in the living room, Jason stirred, awakening to the sounds of laughter and the faint thump of toys being moved around. He smiled to himself, grateful for the family he had built, a tapestry woven from love and shared experiences. However, as he stretched and prepared to join them, an unsettling thought crossed his mind. The converging pressures of family life, career demands, and personal aspirations weighed heavily on him, despite his efforts to maintain a serene front for his loved ones. During breakfast, amidst syrup and giggles, Molly suggested planning a family outing for the following weekend, perhaps a day at the local lake where they could swim, fish, and immerse themselves in the natural beauty surrounding them. As the day unfolded, Jason felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the outing would not only provide fun, but also present a chance to reconnect with Molly and their children, reminisce about simpler times, and create new memories together. Following the tragic death of his first wife, Margaret, who passed away due to an asthma attack, Jason enlisted the help of Molly as an au pair to assist him in caring for his young children. At that time, Molly was 24 years old, and Jason needed support for his children, who were just 3.5 years old and 1.5 years old, respectively. He brought Molly from Knoxville to help with Jack and Sarah. Over time, a romantic relationship blossomed between Jason and Molly. In 2011, they relocated from Tennessee, United States to Ireland with the family, including Jack, who was 3.5 years old, and Sarah, who was 1.5. This move was part of Jason's job as a plant manager for an international packaging company, leading them to settle in Davidson County, North Carolina. That same year, Jason and Molly tied the knot. Tom, Molly's father, made the frantic call at 3 a.m. "My son-in-law got into a fight with my daughter," he told the operator, his voice trembling. "I intervened, and he's in bad shape. He's bleeding everywhere, and I think I may have killed him." A paramedic team was dispatched immediately. The emergency dispatcher instructed Tom and Molly to perform CPR until help arrived. Tragically, despite their efforts, Jason could not be saved. He succumbed to multiple blows to the head, and afterward, Tom and Molly were taken to the police station in separate patrol cars. At the station, Molly started recounting the events from that night at their home. Around 3 a.m., her 8-year-old daughter Sarah had come downstairs, frightened by nightmares. To comfort her, Molly went to the bedroom before returning, only to Jason furious about being woken. This quickly escalated into a violent confrontation between the couple. As the argument intensified, Jason attacked Molly, choking her amidst the chaos. The commotion caught the attention of Tom, who, hearing the screams from upstairs, rushed into their bedroom armed with a baseball bat for protection. He had instructed his wife to remain in the room while he sought to understand the source of the disturbance. In that moment of panic, Tom overheard Jason threatening to kill Molly, which fueled his urgency to intervene. He entered the bedroom, prepared to confront the situation head-on. Tom burst into the bedroom just as Jason was choking Molly. He immediately confronted Jason, pleading with him to release his daughter and to calm down. However, Jason refused, threatening to kill her instead. As Jason turned his back and began dragging Molly toward the bathroom, she fought back, but her strength was no match for his. Realizing that he could not leave his daughter alone with her aggressor, Tom swung the metal bat at Jason, striking him multiple times in the head. Yet Jason managed to overpower Tom, knocking him to the floor and wresting the bat away. In that tense moment, Molly, terrified that Jason would harm her father, seized a decorative garden stone from the bedside table and struck Jason across the head with it. This brief interruption allowed Tom to regain his footing. Afterward, Tom managed to grab the bat and struck Jason in the head multiple times. However, he suddenly stopped, shocked to realize that Jason was already dead. Strangely, there were no signs of a struggle, neither had any abrasions or bruises. This raises significant questions about the events that unfolded at the Corbett house on that fateful night. What really transpired? Before delving into that, let me provide you with a deeper understanding of the background of the individuals involved and the circumstances that may have led to this tragic incident. Molly Martin spent the majority of her life in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she was the only daughter among 4 children. Her father, Tom, devoted 30 years to the FBI, while her mother had a distinguished career as a mathematics professor, highlighting the importance of education in their household. Growing up in a well-educated and affluent family, Molly's parents, Sharon and Tom, instilled in her the importance of education. After completing high school, Molly chose to pursue a medical degree at Clemson University in South Carolina, enrolling in 2003. However, she soon found the academic demands to be more challenging than anticipated, necessitating significant effort and hard work. As a result, she made the difficult decision to withdraw from the university. By early 2007, Molly began dating Keith Megan, and they moved in together just a couple of months later. During this time, she worked as a nanny and also taught children how to swim. Molly's boyfriend worked at a local nonprofit organization, and their relationship progressed rapidly. She was known for being fun, happy, and carefree. However, both of them faced challenges due to mental health issues. Molly had been diagnosed with depression and had informed Keith about her bipolar disorder before they began their relationship. Initially, everything seemed to be going well. Keith observed that medication was beneficial for Molly's mental health issues. Unfortunately, things took a turn when Molly contracted Staphylococcus aureus. The treatment for the infection interfered with her bipolar medication, disrupting her usual balance and stability. This period became particularly challenging for them, as Keith later recounted. Molly struggled with severe migraines and insomnia, spending countless hours soaking in the bathtub. There were moments when she would find herself lying on the floor in tears. At one point, her medication regimen had her taking as many as 16 pills daily, which prevented her from continuing to babysit. As a result, she stayed at home while Keith took on the responsibility of fully providing for both of them, despite his modest income. During this challenging time, Molly fell into a deep depression. Each time Keith returned home, he faced uncertainty about what awaited him behind their door, which put a strain on their relationship. After a while, Molly began to show signs of improvement, often expressing her desire to get engaged to Keith. Hoping this might uplift her spirits, he took the step to propose. Unfortunately, he soon realized that his efforts did not help as much as he had hoped. In an effort to support her during this tumultuous period, Molly's concerned parents arranged for her stay at a psychiatric unit in Emory Hospital, located in Atlanta. The goal was to help her stabilize and find the right medication to effectively manage her bipolar disorder and depression. After 4 days in treatment, she returned to Keith, and they attempted to resume their life together. However, by the end of February, tension had built in their relationship. One night, Molly confided in Keith about her desire to travel to Europe and work as a living nanny, an idea he opposed, fearing it would be too challenging given her struggles, as she often couldn't manage simple tasks like grocery shopping alone. Despite his concerns, Molly ultimately made the choice to leave for Ireland, and Keith never saw her again. Looking back, she reflected on how this babysitting opportunity arrived at a pivotal moment in her life. Despite the challenges she faced, Molly reflected on how this babysitting opportunity in Ireland arrived at a pivotal moment in her life. It provided her with a chance to rebuild her self-esteem and regain a sense of purpose as she cared for Jason's children. Within a few months, Jack and Sarah began to call her mom, marking an important transition in her new role and identity. Jason's sister, Tracy Lynch, who had always been very close to them, observed a stark transformation in Molly since they left Ireland. She commented that the Molly they knew back in Ireland was quite different from the woman she had become in the States. When relatives from Ireland traveled to Tennessee for the wedding ceremony, they noticed Molly's peculiar behavior. Rather than exhibiting the joy typical of brides eagerly awaiting marriage, she seemed to be trying to control everything around her, often displaying anger and withdrawing from others. There were times when she stayed in bed, refusing to speak to anyone. This alarming change prompted Jason's family to question whether he should truly integrate into this American family. In fact, his best friend witnessed the distressed groom and advised him to leave, suggesting he catch a flight back to his home country. However, Jason was resolute, stating that he couldn't abandon his commitment to Molly. Despite his desire to return home, Jason felt bound by the commitment he had made to Molly and the children. 4 years later, while Molly had developed a close bond with Jason's children, whom she regarded as her own, her marriage to Jason was becoming increasingly strained. Tracy recalls that back in 2014, Jason expressed his intentions to relocate, revealing his growing dissatisfaction with life in America. He had started to gain weight, a physical manifestation of his unhappiness, as he felt unsettled by certain issues at home and restless for his homeland, Ireland. When Molly learned about Jason's longing to leave, it stirred further complications in their relationship. Although the children referred to her as Mom, Jason was adamant about not allowing her to become their legal guardian, maintaining an air of control over their family dynamics. She later confided in several friends about the abuse she suffered at the hands of her husband. Despite her claims, there was no visible evidence to support Molly's accusations. Neighbors began to watch Jason more closely, but numerous testimonies indicated that there were no signs of physical harm, no abrasions, bruises, or injuries that would suggest abusive behavior. In fact, she appeared neither withdrawn nor haggard. On the contrary, she didn't seem afraid of him at all. Jason, for his part, presented as friendly, outgoing, and generous, which further complicated the situation. The Corbett's closest neighbor reported that Molly had made statements that seemed inconsistent with the overall context. If she were to ever divorce, her lack of establishing legal guardianship would leave her with no grounds to claim custody of the children. Molly later confided in several friends about the abuse she suffered at the hands of her husband. Despite her claims, there was no visible evidence to support her accusations. Neighbors began to watch Jason more closely, but numerous testimonies indicated that there were no signs of physical harm, no abrasions, bruises, or injuries suggesting abusive behavior. In fact, she appeared neither withdrawn nor haggard. On the contrary, she seemed unafraid of him at all. Molly's love for her children, Sarah and Jack, prevented her from leaving her abusive husband. She admitted that she never disclosed her husband's mistreatment because the children were not her biological offspring and lacked U.S. citizenship, which made her fear that Jason might take them from her. Concerned that no one would believe her claims about Jason's abuse, she sought advice from her attorney and began using hidden recording devices to document the situation. While many of the recordings she collected were ultimately lost or destroyed, those that remain have been submitted to prosecutors. For instance, one recording titled Jason Comes Home, late December 2013, captures a moment when Jason arrives home only to find the door locked. He rings the bell repeatedly, and when Molly opens the door after 39 seconds, she immediately apologizes. "You never mean to do anything, do you?" he asks, his voice laced with anger as he mocks her. Molly's pleas are drowned out by the sound of multiple slaps, and soon she begins to whimper, sobbing quietly, "I hate you." The recording abruptly cuts out after her admission that Jason had a key but was too drunk to open the door. As often occurred in their home, the rage escalated, leaving her feeling that whatever happened was her fault. This tension lingered even 4 days after their father's death, when 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah were interviewed twice by state authorities. During interviews conducted by an authorized social worker, the children spoke about their father's aggression and the ongoing issues in their parents' marriage. The children identified and acknowledged significant issues, including verbal, emotional, and physical abuse from their father. During the interviews, Sarah shared that their mother often avoided waking Dad because he would become very angry, questioning, "Why are you waking me up?" Jack recounted witnessing his father's use of physical force on a couple of occasions. When the social worker posed a crucial question to summarize their experiences, whether anyone had prompted them to respond in a particular manner, Sarah responded, noting that her mother had told her to only share the truth. A few years prior, Jason had formally appointed Tracy as the legal guardian of his children in case something happened to him. In the event of Jason's death, Tracy, aware of Molly's likely contest for custody, immediately flew to North Carolina to petition for guardianship of the children. 16 days later, Tracy was granted guardianship of Jack and Sarah, leading them to move back to Ireland in January 2016. During this time, Tom and Molly faced second-degree murder charges connected to Jason's death. Tracy suspected that Molly learned of Jason's intentions to take the children back to Ireland without her, prompting a twisted plan to eliminate him, as Molly longed for her children, but not her husband. By July 2017, Molly and Tom were on trial for the murder of Jason Corbett. In contrast, the prosecution presented a different account of events that excluded any mention of strangulation or claims of self-defense. They heavily relied on forensic evidence, which encompassed disturbing photographs of Jason's body and evident signs of a struggle within the bedroom. According to the pathologist's report, Jason sustained at least 12 strikes to the head. The precise number remained uncertain, as the blows impacted the same area repeatedly. The examination revealed significant cracks in the skull and severe bruising, symptoms akin to those experienced by someone who has suffered a fall from a considerable height or been involved in a serious car accident. A blood spatter expert indicated that, at one moment, Jason's head was positioned 30 to 45 centimeters above the floor while he continued to be struck. According to prosecutors, Jason was initially attacked while still in bed. At the time, his system was sedated, as confirmed by toxicology tests that revealed the presence of a sedative prescribed in Molly's name just 2 days before the tragedy. Additionally, jurors learned that about a year prior, Jason's $600,000 insurance policy had been altered, making Molly the sole beneficiary. The jurors were shown photographs of Tom and Molly taken at the police station on the night of August 2nd. Notably, neither Tom nor Molly exhibited any injuries. There were no scratches or bruises on their bodies. This raised questions about the plausibility of their accounts, particularly when Molly described attempting to fend off a man larger, stronger, and taller than herself. It seemed implausible that they could have been involved in such a confrontation without sustaining any marks. Furthermore, it appeared that Tom and Molly were strategically stalling their call to the police to fabricate a story, all while Jason's body was growing cold on the floor. This observation was noted by the paramedics who arrived at the Corbett household, as they remarked on the low temperature of Jason's body, indicating that it had already begun to cool. During the trial, there was minimal discussion regarding instances of domestic violence, and no evidence of abusive behavior on Jason's part was disclosed. Incidents like the one on August 2nd were not uncommon. This occasion marked a significant difference, as my father was present in the house. In defense of his clients, the attorney highlighted a photo taken at the station. Just 2 weeks prior to this incident, Jason underwent a routine physical examination. During this visit, the doctor noted that Jason had been experiencing stress. He also reported episodes of uncontrollable outbursts and unreasonable anger. The autopsy revealed several marks on Jason's left arm, suggesting that he was attempting to defend himself during the altercation, indicating a more complex interaction than that of a simple attack. This detail raised critical questions about the nature of the confrontation. However, there were no such marks on his right arm, which he allegedly employed to hold Molly by the neck. This was all brought to light during 9 days of testimony, arguments, and the presentation of photographs from the scene of the tragedy. After spending less than 5 hours in deliberation, the jury reached a verdict, finding Tom and Molly guilty. The court subsequently imposed sentences ranging from 20 to 25 years in prison for both individuals. A few days following the verdict, their lawyers filed an objection to the court's decision, primarily citing judicial errors. One significant claim was that the jury had violated the judge's instructions by discussing the case before the verdict was even announced. However, the court ultimately denied the motion to overturn the verdicts. In January 2019, the appeals court allowed both the defense and prosecution to present oral arguments in the case of Molly and Tom. It is noteworthy that the defendants themselves were absent from the courtroom during this process. Each side had a mere half hour to articulate their main arguments. On February 4, 2020, the North Carolina Court of Appeals reversed the convictions of Tom and Molly, ordering a new trial. This decision stemmed from several errors in the initial trial, particularly the exclusion of evidence suggesting that Jason may have been violent toward Molly. During this process, the defense and prosecution were allowed to present oral arguments. However, the defendants were not present in the courtroom. Each side was given only half an hour to articulate their main arguments. A year later, the North Carolina Supreme Court upheld the appellate court's ruling in the face of a challenge from the state, confirming that the wrongful exclusion of key evidence and the improper inclusion of other evidence may have hampered Tom and Molly's ability to mount a solid defense. The exclusion of certain evidence and the incorrect admission of other evidence may have hindered Tom and Molly from establishing a valid defense. As a result, their claims of self-defense lacked substantial evidentiary support. Consequently, the jury was not adequately informed about the totality of the evidence, impairing their ability to fulfill their constitutional responsibilities. During this ordeal, Molly and Tom spent 44 months in prison before being released on bail of $200,000 each in April 2021. It is essential to highlight that much of the case hinged on interviews conducted with two young children shortly after their father's death while they were staying with Molly's family. Both Jack and Sarah have since recanted their earlier statements, alleging that they were instructed to provide false testimony regarding domestic abuse. From their residence in Ireland, they have since informed the Davidson County District Attorney's Office that Molly coerced them into making entirely false statements regarding their father, shedding light on potential manipulations that may have influenced their perceptions of family dynamics. A new trial took place in November 2023, during which the judge sentenced Molly Martins and her father Thomas to a minimum of 7 months in prison. Following an emotional final day of sentencing hearings, the pair was let out of a North Carolina court in handcuffs, receiving sentences ranging from 7 to 30 months for the voluntary manslaughter of Jason Corbett, in addition to the 3.5 years that Molly and Thomas had already served following their previous murder conviction. This development raised questions about justice and the complexities involved in domestic violence cases. What do you think about this story? Share your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching and for being with me. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.